And once again, the Daily News doesn't have a local editorial. They've got something here from, guess where? The USA Today editorial board. And the point they make is to combat labor shortages, raise legal immigration. The nation is so frantic for truckers that 20% of long-haul drivers are boosting productivity with amphetamines. Minnesota-based Cargill Inc., America's largest producer of ground beef, has 1,400 job openings on any given week. This is really interesting stuff, and it does cause us to discuss an interesting question. If you have a, quote, labor shortage, that is, if there are more jobs than there are workers, that's good for the workers because it causes wages to go up. When the demand stays the same and the supply decreases or is not enough, the price goes up. So I would suspect that all of these American workers that everybody is trying to covet into his presidential campaign would say, no, leave it alone. Yeah, wages are good and they're getting better. On the other hand, real wages actually can only increase when there's an increase in productivity. So if you have a situation where you don't have enough workers to actually make the production happen or happen in the degree that it should, then that tends to cause real wages to decline a little bit. So it's a really interesting question. It's just unfortunate that the Daily News is not addressing that question here on Guam. Do we have a shortage of workers here on Guam? Do we need to ask the United States government, please let more people into Guam from foreign countries? We can only sit here and guess, and we can say this is a really interesting editorial. Too bad it's not relevant to our situation, Daily News, and that's why we're so hot on local editorials here. So you're not going to get the Blue Star today again, Daily News. So from there I turned straight to the Post, and the Post. Gov Guam must consider austerity measures, share plan with the public. The government of Guam is looking at an estimated $31.7 million loss because of COVID-19 threat. Yet there hasn't been one word about what the government is going to do to adjust the reduction in revenues. Not from Adelup, and certainly not from the legislature as a whole, which from the looks of it is afraid to do anything to upset the executive branch. Isn't that exactly what I predicted at the beginning of this legislature? If you go back to your notes, and I know a lot of folks out there in our international radio listening audience keep very accurate notes on what's transpired here on Tall Tales. But if you were to go back in your notes, you would see that I said that we're going to have a veto-proof legislature this time around. And I clarified that statement saying veto-proof not because 10 senators will override any veto that the governor attaches to any of the bills that are passed by the legislature. No, not that. But veto-proof in the sense that the legislature won't pass anything that the governor doesn't like. And that's kind of what the Post is picking up on here. Now, there have been a couple of things that the governor didn't like. There was one thing she actually did veto, but for the most part, it seems that the legislature walks on eggs when it comes to anything dealing with the governor. Afraid not to disappoint the governor, perhaps, right? So far, the legislature as a whole, nor the governor, has said they haven't said one word about the governor, what the government is going to do to adjust to the reduction in revenues. I'll give you a hint for that one word. Let's try this one. Lower. Yeah, that's one word. Starts with L, ends with R. Lower. The lone voice of dissent, Senator James Moylan, has called for certain measures to at least help the local business community, but Adelup continues to ignore him. Take heart, Jim. You're doing the right thing. Sometimes leadership. I'm going to come back and explain what leadership is sometime right after this short break.
The coronavirus and how it's been portrayed in the media, plus the uncertainty driven by conflicting information, has provided managers with a unique opportunity. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, I'll give you the details on how you may want to handle it.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Everyone has a busy schedule these days, and sometimes we forget to schedule our routine dental checkup and cleaning. Don't neglect your dental health. Schedule one today with Dr. Robert Yang and his Smile Team, conveniently located at the East West Business Center on Marine Drive, Upper Tumon. Call us today at 647-8702 or 3. Again, that's 647-8702 or 647-8703. We make smiles happen.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Security Title, providing solutions for complex real estate transactions.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255.
Yeah, Andrew just reminded me of something that I could have capitalized on when I was reading about Joe Biden's latest rhetorical techniques. You remember the pencil-necked gentleman who led the impeachment proceedings in the House?
I do.
You remember his name? Adam.
Oh, man.
Schiff. Yeah. So Joe could have said, "You're full of Schiff."
There you go.
Yeah. A hard decision. Better Schumer or Schiff?
It smells the same to me, sir.
Yeah. You're absolutely right, real Joe Cruz. Okay, so Jim Moylan here has called for certain measures to at least help the local business community, but Adelup continues to ignore him. So take heart, Jim. You're doing the right thing. And sometimes leadership means that you are marching to the drumbeat when everybody else is out of step. So you're marching to the drumbeat, Jim, and Lou and the other senators are just out of step. But stick with it. They'll catch up with you sooner or later. So much for working with the legislature, or checks and balances for that matter, the editorial says. Meanwhile, the people of Guam are left in the dark, wondering if the government is ready and concerned about what that means for the community. One local restaurant owner said the government of Guam isn't prepared for the impact of reduced visitors and felt that the administration should take austerity measures, possibly reducing its budget, including GovGuam employees' hours, just as the CNMI government has done. Now, Lewis actually sent the opposite signal, kind of ignoring the business community and telling them, well, what you need to do is have a contingency plan. But then a couple of weeks ago saying, well, you know, we've got that extra $29 million we collected, and we've got our rainy day fund, so we're going to be okay, meaning that the government is not going to suffer. Government employees, I'm going to take care of government employees. The rest of you guys, you don't work for the government, so you're not our people. Why should I be So the restaurant owner suggested to do the same thing as in Saipan. Saipan, the folks are working 32-hour weeks now instead of 40-hour weeks, and they've had their pay cut by 20%, obviously. We did the same thing here back in the 27th Guam legislature. We cut hours. Senators even cut their own salaries back to $40,000 a year. The editorial goes on to say, we don't necessarily think government employees' salaries need to be reduced. Indeed, considering the impact the dwindling tourist numbers are having on private sector employment, with workers' hours being reduced or worse, people getting laid off, GovGuam employees may be the only thing keeping the economy rolling. Well, there's something to what the editorial says. It's a little bit more complicated than that. And that's the word cash flow. That a business could be profitable. Your accountant could say, yeah, your business is profitable, but you're going to have to go out of business because of cash flow. So the government of Guam employees don't create wealth in any sense of the word. Well, I suppose the folks at the utilities do, and maybe the airport and the port. But as a general principle, they don't create wealth, but they do make up a large portion of the cash flow for a lot of businesses in town. So you're kind of, once again, you're kind of caught on the horns of a dilemma there. When revenue decreases and you don't have enough money to make your payroll, what are you going to do? Lay people off? Take that cash out of the economy, reducing your tax collections even more, or figure out some kind of deficit spending to keep those people on the payroll? Not an easy question. Fortunately for me, part of the Tall Tales Brain Trust is on the line right now to help me deal with that. So, Jimmy, how would you deal with this problem?
Well, okay, there is a problem. First, you have to admit it. And the main problem is our beloved fellow Guamanians just don't realize their sole purpose in life is to support GovGuam. That's why they exist. They need to pay taxes and support GovGuam salaries. And until they realize that, well, I don't know what's going to happen.
Okay, so it's a matter of consciousness, right, Jimmy?
Yeah, they got to just wake up and realize their place in the scheme of things. All of our beloved Guamanians exist only to support GovGuam. And GovGuam needs tax. GovGuam needs high salaries. Whatever speechal needs more money. Yes or no?
Well, you make a pretty compelling argument there, Jimmy, as usual.
Well, I guess everybody who works for GovGuam would agree with me. And you know, GovGuam are the nicest, friendliest. You go to RevTax, and we're doing an informal survey about RevTax. Do you love RevTax? Do you hate RevTax? Rev and tax.
Mm-hmm.
So far, the result's not in.
Do you have a prediction? Do you have a prediction, Jimmy? How's it going to come out?
Well, it depends. Do you ask the GovGuam employees, or do you ask our beloved fellow Guamanians if they love Rev and tax or if they hate Rev and tax?
Okay.
When was the last time you tried to get your car registered?
Well, believe it or not,
How
Jimmy.
long did it take?
Believe it or not, Jimmy, I don't have. I'm pretty good at complaining, but I don't have any real complaints about RevTax. Of course, I'm in that magic category of people of over 55, so I can go to the front of the line. But I'll tell you what happened to me a few years ago. My birthday is December 20, and I just noticed on the 18th of December that I hadn't renewed my license, so I rushed up there, and the line was so long that it went from the main lobby out the door, back around down that long, long hallway down towards the toilets. And I'm standing in that line for about 3 hours, literally. And finally, when I get up to the counter, I see a sign that says people 55 and over can come to the front of the line. So I was a little bit, they should have put that sign back where I was.
Yeah, actually, the sign says 55 over and military. When I went up there, okay, I'm 68. And I went up there, and a whole bunch of military wearing their damn camos, standing in front of me. I just got tired of waiting. Because Doug Guam at Renew Your Registration are so efficient. I'd probably have to call. I hadn't been up there yet. And they're probably going to find me for something.
Yeah, well.
So anyway, what would you predict? Do people love revenue tax or hate revenue tax? Simple, informal survey.
Well,
not sanctioned by the University, quote unquote, of Guam.
I think there may be gradations in between love and hate, Jimmy. But if those were the only two choices, I would probably have to say I love Rev and Tax. Because my experience at Rev Tax has actually been pretty good, all things considered.
That's why we have a vote. That's why we have a survey.
That's why.
You say you love Rev and Tax, other people don't.
Yeah, well, it takes all kinds of people to make the world, Jimmy, like you and me, right?
Yeah. Could I ask you another question?
If it's not too hard, Jimmy, I don't handle hard questions until after the halftime show.
Okay, I'll go back to it, but I want to change the subject.
I didn't know we were on any particular subject, Jimmy, but go ahead.
Yeah, let's talk about ICE.
Let's wait until after the halftime show.
Okay.
All right. Thanks for calling, Jimmy. Always a pleasure talking to you. Okay, so where was I here? Zemi Ikotny, right? Zemi. Yeah. So I mentioned that the governor has, the only thing she said, and it was more than one word, was pretty much, don't worry, we got enough to keep the government of Guam running business as usual. And here's something from the restaurant owner. Gov Guam thinks they have a lot of money. They have a lot of money because of the gross receipts tax. And the gross receipts tax relies largely on the private sector. I got news for you, Guam Post. The gross receipts tax relies only on the private sector. The government doesn't pay gross receipts tax. Gov Guam does have to take steps to reduce costs, if for no other reason than to help the business community so fewer people lose their hours or their jobs. At least one agency has begun to take some action. During a press conference Monday, Tom Atta, manager of the airport, reported a total of 346 flights have been canceled as of that day. That's a loss of as many as 56,000 passengers and an economic impact of $5.6 million. Because flight cancellations affect its collection of landing fees, GIA has instituted a 15% reduction in costs. Administration officials have touted a $29 million in revenue collections above projected numbers for the first quarter of this fiscal year. Perhaps they thought that would help buffer the negative economic effects of the coronavirus. The threat if the threat were over, perhaps that would be the case. But not only is it not over, no one knows when it will end. And all indications point to the situation getting worse before it gets better. We need more monitoring. Adelup says it's aggressively monitoring government revenues. The governor's policy director, Carlo Branch, had this to say in response to questions from the Post. Government revenues are generally stable at this point, and the statutory threshold for a fiscal realignment plan has not been met. We are prepared for various scenarios and will take appropriate action when necessary. We hope they're doing more than monitoring at this point because people need to plan. And for many residents and businesses alike, the plan depends on what and how the government is doing. Okay, and they wind up by saying, hopefully, Adelup will share with the public what information it has and how it plans to move forward. Hopefully. You remember a guy named Tom Swift?
No, sir, I don't.
Yeah, Tom Swifties. Well, this is not the way you use the word hopefully. I think I can get a job, he said, hopefully. In other words, it's an adverb, right? He said, hopefully. And I know that my wife will cook a good dinner, he said, hopefully. But to say, hopefully, Adelup will, no. What they're trying to say is, we hope Adelup will share with the public what information it has. So that's not as bad as they, but it's not very good for a newspaper. Okay. It's a marginal blue star, but I'm going to give the blue star today to Adelup because it has called out the governor, told the governor what the governor ought to be doing, etc. So the coveted blue star does go to the Post. The first one in several days. Yeah. Hopefully they'll get another blue star tomorrow.
Hopefully, sir.
Yeah, hopefully. All right. Okay. Let's go from there to the card. And let's see what I have on the card for today. I have a new feature on the card today. It's called Our National Government. But I think before I get into the card, this is Joe now.
Yeah, Joe, sir.
It's not another Joe.
No, it's not another Joe. It's not the real Joe. It's just Joe.
It's just Joe?
Yes,
it's
sir.
Not an average Joe.
No, sir.
Just Joe.
Just Joe.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Joe.
Good afternoon, Just Joe.
Hello, just another Joe.
Okay, Joe.
Thank you for taking my call. I really love your show, Mr. Klitzkie. I enjoyed it a lot.
Thank you.
And I hate to call about a complaint, but I just kind of want to get it off my chest. I live up here in Upper Tumon, right behind Bank of Hawaii and Goodies up here.
Mm-hmm.
And we've had these wrecked vehicles and abandoned vehicles in the government easement. And I'm not really sure how it works here. And the mayor, Rivera, just says they don't have funds to remove the cars. But are they the ones that do it, or is it Guam GPD? Do you know what we should do about these cars that are...
Your mayor is supposed to coordinate all that kind of stuff, and that is a non-answer. We don't have the funds to do it is just a drawn-out way of saying, I don't want to get involved with it. Go away, don't bother me.
Yeah, it's pretty ghetto. It's just embarrassing, and I'm concerned about kids playing in there, and it's just terrible. I kind of want to hook a chain to my truck and drag it off somewhere, but it's just awful that our government can't do such a simple job and get rid of that, take it to the dump. But I just thought I could air that complaint, and I appreciate you hearing me out. I don't know if other villages have the same problem, but
That's pretty sad that we don't have the funds to remove a junk car from a residential area. That's sad.
I don't think it's the funds, Joe. I think it's the will.
Yeah.
I think it's the will. If Mayor Rivera really wanted to get it done, she would get it done. But she doesn't really want to get it done. She is, after all, the president of the mayor's council.
Great. Well, I'd like to encourage any residents of Upper Tumon. I'd like to encourage them to go by the mayor's office, to call her, and to just keep the pressure on, because it's unsatisfactory. That's all. It's just a shame.
Well, go ahead, Joe.
Oh, anyway, I really appreciate you hearing my complaint there. And again, I want to urge people that have the same problem to call the mayor. There's plenty of people that live near us, and we're right next to the Bonsrai Plaza there in Upper Tumon. It's pretty awful.
Okay, well, good luck with that, Joe. And you've taken a big first step by bringing it to the attention of the Tall Tales International Radio listening audience.
Yep, if you want to get something done, call Bob.
There you
Bob.
go.
I appreciate it.
Okay, Joe. So, Mayor Rivera, Earth to Mayor Rivera, you've got a dissatisfied constituent, and you can get away with this with some of the folks that live in your village. We don't have the funds, but that doesn't work on Tall Tales. Do you have a telephone? Do you have a government-owned vehicle? Do you know how to pound on a desk? That's your job, Mayor Rivera. Sitting at a desk and making wisecracks all day, that's my job, not yours. We don't have the funds. Okay, I guess it's kind of raining Joes today, isn't it, Real Joe Cruz?
You're right, sir.
So we got the Real Joe Cruz answering the phone, and we got Just Joe. And then we've got another Joe online right now. Good afternoon, another Joe.
Of course, you're G.I. Joe, right there, Bob?
I could be if properly persuaded, yeah.
So I would say this is an election year, so definitely a good time to bring call to the attention of the mayors, whatever the junk car, wherever that junk car is. So it looks like we're starting to have problems with the Guam bombs again. They got to start some sort of island beautification.
Yeah. Well, again, we lost another Joe.
Yeah, I guess he dropped.
I didn't hang up on you, another Joe. The call just dropped, so if you want to call back, I'm going to take this short break here, and then I'll get you back on the line, another Joe.
If you own a Toyota, please listen to this. It could help you avoid injury, maybe save your life. The Takata airbags installed in certain Toyotas can explode and shoot out sharp metal fragments at people inside the vehicle. You don't need to be in a collision. They could explode any time. In the U.S., these airbags have caused 26 deaths. There's been a worldwide recall of Takata airbags, and most have had the faulty parts replaced. But here in Guam, there are still over 3,000 Toyotas on the road with potentially lethal airbags, and yours could be one of them. So please, take your Toyota to Atkins Grow, even if you didn't buy it from us, and get the inflator replaced. It costs you nothing, it takes just about an hour, and it could save a life, yours or someone you love. The AK song says we're here for life. That's never been more true.
At Atkins Grow, we're here for life.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Okay, so I got a caller on line one. I wonder who it is. It's not another Joe? It is another Joe. Okay, so another Joe.
I had to make you mad by calling you G.I. Joe.
We had a technical difficulty there, another Joe. I don't think you would be able to make me mad even if you tried, but the phone the phone just decided to hang up on you. It wasn't my fault. It wasn't the real Joe Cruz. I know you Joe stick together anyhow. So
Go Joe, right?
Yeah. So you were making the point that election time is coming soon.
That's right.
And
it's the right time.
If I were in the situation of a Joe and dissatisfied with my mayor, I would be tempted to write an open letter to the mayor and send it off to the Daily News and the Post.
Yeah.
Dear Mayor Rivera, don't try to bola me with this. We don't have the funds. BS.
You would think that in the mayor's council they could help each other out. The different mayors with their resources. Someone just has, like you said, a chain. Someone has a dolly. There's several ways they could dispose of the vehicle depending on whether it still has tires. Otherwise, if they know someone who has a tow truck. There's different ways it can be done, but we'll see what happens in the next few months, I guess. But Bob, what I was thinking is that for 30 plus years now, the FSM, and I don't know how many countries, these different countries have a compact with the U.S. They've been depopulating to the point where I think I've heard there's a word of mouth that they want their people to come back to their country. What I was thinking is, man, if they continue at this rate, there's not going to be anyone left to maintain their country. Well, I think maybe that might be Uncle Sam's plan there. We could just go and annex it, and whoever's remaining, and say, hey, guess what? You're all fellow American citizens now, and this is new territory of the USA.
Well, if everybody left, then they wouldn't have to worry about rising oceans, would they?
Well, that and there's I would think that they would all appreciate being U.S. citizens because they definitely are benefiting from the services. All these different programs that they're getting. For coming and signing up for all over these different states or territories. But I just want to throw that idea out there. I'll bet that eventually they will be in favor of simply becoming another U.S. territory. You think that the Congress and the federal, the national government, as you say, you think that they would be pretty easily persuaded to turn the compact into these countries and the compact into a new U.S. territory?
I sincerely doubt it, real Joe Cruz. I'm sorry. I sincerely doubt it, another Joe. First of all, it would be without precedent. We have never taken a foreign country and turned it into a territory. We took a foreign country and turned it into a state one time. You remember from your excellent course in American history.
Hawaii?
No, it was Texas.
Oh, Texas.
Yeah, maybe it was the other way around. Texas took a foreign country and made it into Texas. Sometimes it's hard to tell. Yeah.
So what was Hawaii then?
Hawaii had been a foreign country, and then there was a coup in 1893. Yeah, I guess it was a foreign country. I'll take that back. Yeah. Yeah, there was. Yeah, you're right, Joe.
So it wouldn't be impossible. All we have to do is say, hey, you all are pretty much majority signed up for the program already.
Well, let's put it this way. As a matter of law, it would be theoretically possible. As a matter of political reality, I suspect it's probably not going to happen because the situation that we have right now is probably the best that we could hope for. Hey, I got a break for the big halftime show.
Thanks a lot, Bob.
Thanks, Uncle Joe. Joe.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
The Biden resurgence continues. I'm Jack Callahan, Fox News. The former vice president winning at least 4 of the 6 states, casting primary votes on Tuesday, including the big one in Michigan, plus Missouri, Mississippi, and Idaho. Biden telling reception in Philadelphia.
It's more than a comeback, in my view, our campaign. It's a comeback for the soul of this nation. This campaign is taking off, and I believe we're going to do well from this point on.
We did not hear from Senator Sanders.
Senator Sanders decided not to address voters after it was projected that he would lose Michigan, a state that he was feeling good about. So there was a feeling and anticipation that we might hear something from him about the path forward, but we will not. Sanders also canceled what was purported to be a landmark speech in Cleveland about the state of this two-man race over coronavirus concerns.
That's Fox's Jackie Heinrich, still to be called the Washington primary and the North Dakota caucuses. At least 29 deaths are reported in the U.S. from the coronavirus, more than 800 infections. Dr. Anthony Fauci of the National Institutes of Health telling Fox's Hannity the outbreak here would be much worse were it not for the president's early limits on inbound travelers.
If we had not done that in a timely way, there would have been many more travel-related cases from China.
The TSA now reporting 3 screeners at the San Jose airport have tested positive for the virus. A traffic stop turns deadly in Hot Springs, Arkansas.
During that traffic stop, Officer Scrimshire was shot in the line of duty. Unfortunately, Officer Scrimshire has passed away due to his injuries.
Public Information Officer Corporal Joey Williams says Officer Brent Scrimshire was a 6-year veteran of the Hot Springs Force. The suspect was also shot. The suspect's name and condition has not yet been released. After another big day on Wall Street Tuesday, Asian stock markets have closed lower. Japan's Nikkei index down more than 2%. Dow futures are down more than 600 points. America is listening to Fox News.
Hafaday. This is Jesse Cruz from Security Title. And in celebration of Chamorro Month, here's a tip on dealing with your land. You might be thinking of putting your child on the title to your property, but keep in mind, if your child is a minor under the age of 18, you will need a court order allowing you to mortgage or sell your property. Protege Itanomo. Protect your land. When it comes to your family land, call the professionals at Security Title. We are here to help.
Bank Pacific, otro banco ramas a mi hali. Viva Bank Pacific.
House Democrats have won a round in court in their continuing efforts to see the unredacted version of the Mueller report.
In a 2-1 ruling, the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals upheld a lower court decision in favor of the House's ability to see the redacted sections in the public version of the Mueller report. If it stands, the ruling would give House lawmakers access to all of the report's blacked-out words, as well as underlying interviews and memos cited in Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, because the House in its legal filings argued that it could still consider new articles of impeachment against the president. The majority of the appeals court said that was sufficient to authorize the release of the grand jury material. An appeal from the Justice Department is all but certain. At the White House, John Decker, Fox News.
In an end run around Republican lawmakers, Oregon's Democrat governor has ordered the state to lower greenhouse gas emissions, ordering a state agency, that is, to set and enforce caps on pollution from both industry and transportation fuels. Governor Kate Brown's sweeping executive order, one of the boldest in the nation, aims to reduce carbon emissions in Oregon to at least 45% below 1990 levels by 2035. The issue is likely to end up in court. Just in time for March Madness, another state is legalizing sports betting.
Sports betting is legal today in Michigan. The state became the 20th to pass sports betting in December, and for now, people can go to casinos to place their bets on teams, which ones will lose or win, as well as how much they'll score. Participants will be able to place bets online early next year, and eventually they'll be able to bet on athletes. Legalized sports betting is projected to bring in more than $15 million a year to the state. Tanya J. Powers, Fox News.
Sentencing day for former movie mogul Harvey Weinstein, convicted of raping a woman and sexually assaulting another. He could get 29 years in prison. I'm Jack Callahan. This is Fox News.
Cocoa Coffee Company mugs are now here. Show pride for your island as you enjoy your delicious Circle K coffee. Each generously sized 16-ounce mug is etched with Guam-inspired images like Chief Gadao, Serena, Two Lovers, and many more. The Cocoa Coffee Company mug collection is available for a limited time only, so don't miss out. Get yours today and collect them all. Exclusively available at Circle K locations. A portion of the proceeds go toward the Cocoa Bird Recovery Program.
Mescla Tomorrow Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is now introducing an at-table all-you-can-eat breakfast menu from 7 a.m. to 11 a.m. every Saturday and 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every Sunday. Enjoy some quality time with your friends and family with some of your favorite local cuisine, from their waffle, hotcakes, and French toast station to their eggs and omelet station and a variety of scrumptious desserts. Weekends at Mescla Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel just got hotter. New year, new menu. Call 969-2652 for reservations. Some restrictions apply.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are from that big, wonderful halftime show that we all know and love so well. The marching bands, the cheerleaders, the drill teams, the synchronized card section up in the bleachers, the sword swallower, the fire eater, etc. Jimmy giving short lectures on interesting subjects to all those who would draw nearby. Right, Jimmy?
Hello? You want three Jimmys?
Yeah, you got three Jimmys on the line.
Anyway, can we
did you hear what I said, Jimmy?
Yes.
Okay, well, pick it up.
Well, could we talk about epidemics?
About what?
Epidemics.
Epidemics?
Epidemics. Epidemic.
I don't know what an epidemic is. It sounds like something that would be contagious, though.
Epidemic. Coronavirus.
Epidemic.
Yes, you got it.
You're just
as dumb as you sound.
Yeah, well, that's what makes me, Jimmy, that's what makes me dangerous. I'm not as dumb as I look.
You're not as good as you. Anyway, what about these epidemics?
Uh-huh.
Okay, we got a corona epidemic, global corona epidemic, and we got a local ice epidemic. So I just want to ask you, which one is more dangerous to our beloved fellow Guamanians?
The ice epidemic, no question about it.
Well, we agree on that. And then I got another question. Well, you know about law and legal and all that.
A little bit, yeah.
But is Judge Never Met a Nice Dealer I didn't release from jail, Anita Sokola, appointed or elected?
Our judges are appointed, and they go before the voters every 8 years. It's a modified Missouri plan. So 8 years after a judge is sworn in, that judge goes on, the name goes on the ballot, and the question is, shall Judge so-and-so be retained in office? Yes or no? And no judge has ever been booted out based on that vote. And it doesn't happen it's a system that's used in a lot of places, and it almost never results in a judge getting booted out, Jimmy.
But just because it's never happened before, that doesn't mean it shouldn't happen again.
It can happen. I remember in Madison, Wisconsin, a judge made a really sexist remark on the bench and got all of the feminists upset with him, and they
That's the wrong pronoun.
Yeah, and they went out and took to the streets, and he lost his judgeship.
Well, his judgeship?
Yes. Well, pardon me, Jimmy. I'm sorry. Their judgeship.
Judgeship.
Their judgeship, yeah.
But what about you got Anita Sokola, still somebody selling ice, somebody dealing ice, somebody using ice. How many of them ever go to the jailhouse?
I don't keep track, Jimmy. I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say that Judge Sokola is too easy. She doesn't hand out tough enough sentences. That's what you're trying to say in your own Jimmy-ish way, right?
Yeah, in that way. So anyway, another question about this ice. Okay, we agree the ice epidemic is more damaging to our beloved fellow Guamanians than the coronavirus.
Yes.
We agree on that. So where does all this ice come in from?
Well,
does it come in on the ship or the airplane?
From what I read in the paper, it comes through the United States mail.
And air freight or ship freight? Air freight.
It just comes in as regular first-class mail. That's my understanding. I don't know as much about it as the former mayor of Jonia does, who could probably be called as an expert witness on that subject.
Yeah. Can I talk to you later about my campaign? Yeah. But, so anyway, we agree. There is ice coming onto this beloved island of Guam. And where is it coming from and how is it coming in? Even more important, how is it coming in? So the U.S. mail comes by the airplane. Yes, FedEx comes by airplane, UPS comes by airplane. Yes.
Yeah, Jimmy.
Okay, there's a bunch of ice coming in here.
Yeah, we kind of established that about 5 minutes ago, Jimmy. Do you have a point that you want to make here, or?
Yeah, where does the ice come in?
I already told you that from reading the papers, I gather that it comes in with the U.S. mail.
The airports.
So this is a rhetorical question, right? This is a trick question?
No. It was a straight question.
All right. So, Jimmy, why don't you make your point, put aside your rhetorical devices, make your point so that I can move on, okay?
Well, I think if someone at the airport would take a little closer look at the cargo.
Okay, so the ice is coming in through the airport. There should be more inspection of cargo. Anything else?
Yeah. Well, one more.
Yeah.
You know what they call Judge Rivera? Hey, did you ever watch Star Wars?
A long time ago, yeah.
You remember Jabba the Hutt?
I do.
You know what they call in Lower Tuman? You know what they call Judge Rivera or Mayor Rivera?
I give up.
Jabba the Mayor.
That's kind of cruel, Jimmy. That sounds like something.
Yeah, that's the way I am.
It sounds like something I'd say. Okay, Jimmy, it's been a little slice of heaven chatting with you this afternoon, but I got to get back to the card, okay?
Hey, can I call back later and tell you about my campaign for the mayor of Joliet?
I'll tell you what, at about 18:10, call back, 10 minutes after 6?
Well, I don't have your phone number, so I can't.
Oh, okay.
I don't do Facebook.
Okay, Jimmy.
Don't like.
So, the Jimmy portion of the show. So it occurred to me yesterday that it's been a long time since I did the read-in for the show, and there are probably some people that are relatively new to the show, so maybe I ought to review some of the points on the read-in here. And I'll start out here with my read-in. This goes back to April of 2019, but I inform people that if you listen long enough, you find people that are pretty adept at telling what the answers are. You go to the bars, the coffee shops, whatever. On Tall Tales here, we try to figure out what the questions are before we jump wildly into the answers, and this sometimes helps us clarify our thoughts. And then I also mentioned that I have 24 topics, default topics on a list in case I ever run out of things to say. Pretty unlikely, but I've got a list of things here that I can always refer to. Like number 1, you can carry a gun anywhere at any time. Number 2, we are second-class citizens. Number 3, there should be term limits for senators. You get the drift. These are 24 topics that I could spend a fair amount of time explaining, talking about, chatting with you on the phone. So that's my list of 24 topics. But then I have 3 more, 0, 00, and 000. And this is how 0 goes. You could always call up and say, Bob doesn't know what he's talking about. And then 00, Bob still doesn't know what he's talking about. And 000, Bob still don't know jack. And if you're a long-time listener, you would understand the significance of the declaration that Bob doesn't know jack. Right, Jack? So that's a part of the show. We talk about current events, government, and all those kinds of things, right? And let's see. Usually serious, sometimes humorous, Tall Tales will examine current events, government and politics, and occasionally drift into history, culture, religion, law, and once in a great while, but only very, very cautiously, rumors and gossips, which is plural for gossip, right, Real Joe Cruz?
Yes, sir.
You heard any gossips today?
No, sir.
Yeah. Now, Tall Tales is structured, but entertains whatever callers want to discuss at any time, if we can. Tall Tales is an issue-driven, fact-oriented, interactive talk show that invites audience participation. It has been the top-rated afternoon FM talk show in Micronesia. And then we're fact-oriented here, and things like, well, they say, everybody knows, we've always done it that way, and there's no doubt in my mind, doesn't make what you say into something that's a fact. And what we're looking for here is a little bit of analysis and some critical thinking. And I talked about common sense yesterday. You know, don't look for an abundance of common sense on Tall Tales, because your common sense is what tells you that the world is flat, that iron ships could never float, and that an object that is heavier than air could never fly. That's common sense. So often common sense is the prevailing standard of ignorance in the community. And I go on to say, well, of course, common sense is to be valued, but not when it's a synonym for reverence for the status quo or timidity. While an instant and firm grasp of the obvious may occasionally be necessary, sometimes it's good to delve into the theoretical and occasionally examine the what-ifs. Common sense, or call it, as our friend Tom, one of our Toms, would call it, common sense. So here on Tall Tales, we want to argue without being argumentative. We want to disagree without being disagreeable. And at no time should anyone try to pin the tail on the talk show host. And Tall Tales, look for provocative content on Tall Tales. Tall Tales thrives on disagreement. So it has been rated the top-rated afternoon talk show in Micronesia. Jan usa dos na lenguaje, I fino English, jan I fino tsumoro loque, I programahu, like programata. Tall Tales is the name, so look for tongue-in-cheek aspects of the show. Sit back and enjoy Zemi Ikatni, the boxing card, the big halftime show, the seventh-inning stretch, directly from Wrigley Field in the home stretch from Churchill Downs. My job is to make the complex understandable and, if possible, interesting. Sometimes we comfort the afflicted. Sometimes we afflict the comfortable. Tall Tales is interactive, and that's what I was trying to tell John the other day. Tall Tales is interactive. No soapboxes allowed. In other words, if you call in, you do not have a license to grab your telephone and use it as a microphone to give a public speech. Tall Tales is interactive. And then finally, your humble, self-effacing, ever-modest host, that's me, is supported by the Tall Tales think tank, to include the foreign policy guru, a constitutional law and organic act expert, and a research, survey, and statistics bureau. So I haven't done that for a long time. Just for folks who haven't tuned in before or have only been tuning in recently, just to kind of explain how things work here on Tall Tales. So I got a new feature today, and this is something that I got off the web. A D.C., District of Columbia ticket agent offers some examples of why the United States is in so much trouble. I love this, as the ticket agent actually names names. Number one, and we'll do these like we did the Biden readings. I mean not the Biden readings.
Bernie?
Yeah, the Bernie readings, yeah. Number one, I had a New Hampshire Congresswoman, Carol Shea Porter, ask for an aisle seat so that her hair wouldn't get messed up by being near the window on an airplane. Well, it's good that the Congresswoman was taking good care of her appearance. You wouldn't want her to run around with messed up hair. Okay, so we'll do, let's see, I've got I got 12 of these. We'll do one of these every day, just like we did with the Bernie readings. And then next in the card, let's see what I've got on the card altogether. I've got Rory versus the ratepayers, Christine Boleto versus Lou, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero, pardon me for being so informal, Governor Lou Leon Guerrero versus Michael San Nicolas, Trump versus Payne-Elliott, and you'll need your Law and Order notebooks for this one. And then I still I haven't finished Laura Sauder versus Fino Zamoro. Laura Sauder versus Fino Zamoro. I did finish PMSNBC versus Tall Tales. And then I've got Chief Ignacio versus you, who's been on the card for quite a while. So starting out with Rory versus the ratepayers. And this is a story from today's Post. Port settles fired workers' case. More than $115,000 in back pay approved. I think this is the fifth settlement now that they've entered into. Port equipment operator Ken Yoshida won a 6-year-old appeal and will receive $115,233.60 in back pay and be reinstated to his position effective March 16. Joseph McDonald, then Port staff attorney, was authorized to offer settlement terms, and General Manager Rory approved the terms on February 24. In 2014, Yoshida was terminated from the port after he received 3 suspensions. According to the terms of the settlement agreement, port management agreed to rescind the adverse action and reinstate him to his old position, provide him back wages that will be paid in 3 installments of about $38,000 each. Management also restored Yoshida's credit for 5 years of annual leave, 5 years of sick leave that he would have accrued had he remained employed at the agency. The parties also agreed to expunge Yoshida's personnel record of his termination and the adverse action upon which it is based. As a result of the settlement, commissioners signed a judgment of dismissal. Post files indicate that then Senator Respicio in March of 2014 raised concerns over the denial of a leave request. This is the second time Yoshida has been successful in having adverse action taken against him reversed. In 2014, prior to his termination, Yoshida received a 15-day suspension. Port management said Yoshida improperly left his job assignment and conducted business without authorization. Post file states. Yoshida defended his actions, arguing he is on a designated break, which was corroborated by another port worker. The Civil Service Commission found management had failed to meet its burden of proof by clear and convincing evidence and reversed the suspension and ordered back pay. During that time, Yoshida had a pending nepotism case against port management that he filed along with his wife, Angela Yoshida, and David Teixeira. The 3 port workers argued in 2014 that a port manager had direct supervision with 2 of his brothers. At the time, Respicio was a senator and publicly expressed concern that Angela Yoshida was retaliated against. He said at the time he believed she should have been given whistleblower protection under the law. In 2017, the commission dismissed the employee's complaint because it failed to act within 180 days required by law to act on employees' post-audit appeal. Angela Yoshida was among 70 port workers who signed a petition in 2019 showing support for Respicio and told board members that port workers had to endure a hostile working government environment under former General Manager Joanne Brown. If my memory serves me correctly, Angela Yoshida also made a speech during the public comment portion of the meeting praising Rory Respicio. Do you remember that, real Joe Cruz?
I don't remember that. Sir.
Yeah, that's kind of what I remember. So here we go again. Now, you'll remember, I've been through this so many times, but Rory's first meeting with the board, he appointed Connie Jo Brennan Shinohara to establish a task force to look at all of these pending adverse actions to see if justice was being done. Connie Jo, the board then authorized settlement negotiations to begin, but Connie Jo quit about a week before that. As if by magic, Connie Jo went out one door and Louis Baza came in the other door. And then the board authorized Louis Baza to do the negotiation. Rory said he was recusing himself. And when I did in the Sunshine for Rory's papers for recusal, the only thing he sent me was a note to the Civil Service Commission saying that Connie was going to represent him. And of course, Connie was already gone by that time. So they seem to be dead set on settling these cases. And there are two things that are very troubling as far as, well, actually three things that are very troubling. One, up until now, the settlement agreements have been confidential. And the port has not made those available, even though, according to the law, they're supposed to send them to Speaker Tina Rose Munya Barnes. Now, you can imagine how much hell Tina Rose Munya Barnes has raised because she didn't get copies of those confidential settlement agreements. Not. Tina has not said anything at all about it, although she made quite a fuss when the university settled with Ron McNinch in a case that was actually a federal civil rights case, and the statute that she was citing was inapplicable. So one, a lot of these have been confidential. Now, it would be nice if the port put this settlement agreement on their website. I suspect they won't. The second thing that's troublesome here is this, that in the public perception, we have a procedure, and the procedure is really slanted towards the employee. First of all, there are so many traps for the unwary that management can get caught in. There's a very tight deadline. It had been 60 days, now it's 90 days. If you haven't finished your case and served management as you were served the employee with the final notice of adverse action within that timeline, the employee could be guilty as sin, but he's going to win at the Civil Service Commission for violating the, quote, 60-day rule. Okay, so we got the seventh inning stretch coming up. I'm going to stretch, and then I'll go back to the port from Wrigley Field.
The coronavirus and how it's been portrayed in the media, plus the uncertainty driven by conflicting information, has provided managers with a unique opportunity. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, I'll give you the details on how you may want to handle it.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at GuamTraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts, brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
At the mall, as you enjoy your shopping, dining, or entertainment, you could also win 3 great cars from Atkins Kroll and thousands of prizes in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game. Present your mall receipts and have a chance to win the renowned performance Chevrolet Camaro, the unapologetic rugged Toyota 4Runner, or the head-turning Lexus ES350 Luxury. Getaways to Manila, courtesy of Philippine Airlines, plus prizes from Foot Locker and Burger King. The more you shop, the more chance to win in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mezcla. Mezcla has all your favorites this Lent season. Try their fish tacos, crispy fish burger, spicy garlic butter shrimp, or lobster pasta at a great price. Available daily for lunch and dinner. Visit Mezcla in Agatna and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
are, 7th inning stretch, Wrigley Field, Chicago, and we take a helicopter from the center field bleachers straight to the port, what we used to call commercial port. And Real Joe Cruz, what did you say? Garlic butter shrimp?
I did, sir.
Could you say that again?
Garlic butter shrimp.
Oh, na.
Yes, sir.
You make it sound so good, Real Joe Cruz.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So I'm back talking about Rory here and his settlements. One thing that bothers me, I started to explain, was that the game is already tilted so much in favor of the employee. You've got the 60-day rule. You've got what I think is a misinterpretation of the rule of 4, but let's hope that the Attorney General can get that straightened out. The management must prove its case not by a preponderance of the evidence, which is the rule for most civil cases, but by clear and convincing evidence. So if you're going to attach numbers to it, clear, as you were, preponderance of the evidence would be like 51%. Beyond a reasonable doubt, it'd be up there around 98, 99%. Clear and convincing evidence is about 75%. So it's a heavy burden that management has. And sometimes management proves its case, but the Civil Service Commission, in a way known only to them, would decide that the punishment has been too harsh and reduce the punishment. Say, reduce a termination to a 30-day suspension, which is a complete victory for the employee. That is very troubling to me, because we have a procedure. So what we should do is, when management puts a case into that procedure, it should be allowed to run its course. If the employee wins at the Civil Service Commission, I probably won't like it, and I probably be critical of the Civil Service Commission if I think they blew it, but I like that a whole lot better than the image of the members of the board of directors of the port adjourning to a smoke-filled room and coming up with a settlement that appears like they gave away the store. And I don't know how they did it, what process they went through, what the considerations were, et cetera. They just gave away some of my money, and I don't know how they did it. So if the process runs its course, the public is going to have a lot more confidence in it than if it's one of the settlements that Rory had been talking about ever since he's been director of the port. Remember, that was the first thing he talked about, appointing Connie Joe to see that justice was done. He also wanted to settle the YTK case. He had been talked with Champ to see if there could be mediation. He also wanted to get rid of Mike Phillips. Again, I can only speculate, perhaps because Mike Phillips said, Rory, we can win these cases. Why would you want to settle a case that you could win? Which is exactly what happened with YTK. We won the case. We being the people of Guam. So that's really bothersome. And then finally, there is a doctrine in contract law called the doctrine of mitigation of damages. And this is how it works. If A and B have a contract and A breaches the contract, he doesn't perform in the way that B should, B has a duty to mitigate damages. And it's really easy to see how this works if it's an employment contract. A fires B. It was a bad bust. And the termination is reversed and B comes back to work. But during the time B was out of work, any money that he made during the time he was out of work is subtracted from the damages that he gets for the wrong termination. 1. 2, during the time that he's out of work, B has a duty to go out and look for comparable employment, and he has to be able to document that. And if he didn't go out and look for comparable employment, he doesn't get any back pay. I don't see that anywhere, and I just have this nasty suspicion that Rory was so anxious to settle that he didn't do, there was no mitigation of damages. They just figured out the total amount of pay and cut a check for that. Once again, when this happens, who actually pays for it? You and I do. Not through our taxes, but through the rates charged at the port. So this is very troubling to see all of these settlements. Cases that we don't know if they could be won or not because Rory has plucked them out of the hopper after saying that he'd recused himself. Not a good situation. Okay, moving from the port to the Chamber of Commerce. Next item on the card, Christine Boleto versus Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. Christine is the president of the Christine is the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce. Catherine Castro is the president. So there is a board made up of members of the chamber. The board then elects a president. That would be Catherine Castro. And this is an article that ran in KUAM last night. Governor Leon Guerrero's 5-point economic assistance plan includes a 90-day deferral of 40% of the business privilege tax, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Chamber Chair Christine Boleto says while she applauds the governor's efforts, the temporary options aren't the solution. It really has to be something that provides financial relief to the business so they can continue to keep their employees' hours and jobs, Boleto said. The chamber had lobbied for a temporary rollback of the business privilege tax from 5% to 4%, but that was quickly rejected by the governor. So remember when they asked Leon Guerrero how long she wanted that increase to stay in place, the increase from 4% to 5%? Do you remember how she answered that question, Real Joe?
I do, sir. She said, temporarily. Well, am I wrong?
You're wrong, Real Joe. Try again.
Forever.
There you go. Takes years and years of practice to do that as well as the governor. I can see why you muffed it the first time. Yeah. Boleto says now they'd like to propose a half-point reduction, but haven't had a chance to discuss it. So even rolling it back to 4.5% would help. So she's willing to be a little bit flexible, but they haven't had a chance to discuss it. She says the governor did meet with the business community just before yesterday's announcement, but only to tell them about her plan. It wasn't a dialogue. So we'd like to open it up and have the opportunity to sit down with her and her advisors, her cabinet, whoever she thinks necessary to actually have dialogue about what would work for the business community and, again, what is acceptable to the administration, Boleto said. Now, I can see Christine Boleto being awarded the Jim Moylan Trophy for the person who is looking for a responsible government, but is roundly ignored on a regular basis. Boleto says they'd like to underscore just how bad the business climate is becoming. I think they're taking it seriously, she said. I'm just not sure they understand the impact that it has on businesses. We're hearing already of 30 to 40% occupancy in the hotels. 30 to 40%. And you know, there's nothing more perishable than a hotel room. That hotel room sits empty tonight. No matter what you do tomorrow night, you lost that revenue forever. There really needs to be some type of assistance for the business community, specifically those directly affected in the tourist industry, to be able to help these folks. So that's why I'm saying the dialogue is needed so that we can collectively come up with solutions, because some of the solutions proposed, although good, not really going to provide that relief to them. Collectively, you know, in other words, Lou is going to sit down and work this out with somebody else. Yeah, like she's been working with Jim Moylan. Boleto adds that even President Trump has expressed concern over the economy. Just today, floating a proposal to cut payroll taxes. Okay, so an interesting item. Next item on the card is Lou versus Michael St. Nicholas. And I could see why Lou didn't have any time to talk with Christine and the chamber folks. This is House passes bill to fund Guam war claims, awaits signature from President Trump. And this ran in the Daily News today. And it talks about, Public Law 11428, payment of war claims, what happened, the historical background, etc. How St. Nicholas put together the fix, got it through the House, went to the Senate, and back to the House. Now, and then back to the House, and the House passed it. And now the last thing is for the president to sign it. And had this not happened, if the president doesn't sign it, if St. Nicholas's bill doesn't become law, all the rest of this stuff doesn't matter, because that's where the money is coming from. So here, as a result of the House passing the bill so that it can go to the president, here's what Lou said. We kept our word, and the likely enactment of H.R. 1365 means we can turn the page on this very painful part of our past. We owe a great debt to our greatest generation. This is one very small way of making good on that obligation, said Lieutenant Governor Joshua Tenorio. In other words, jumping in and grabbing the credit again. We kept our word. Very good. And then on the next page, this is Governor Leon Guerrero. For over 75 years, our Manamco waited for reparations, which no way amounts to the pain and suffering they endured during a war that was not of their choosing. I got to stop here for a second. I don't think wars are ever of anyone's choosing. This is another one of those separatist lines. It wasn't our war. It wasn't the war of their choosing for the 1,548 Marines that got killed in the process of taking this island back from the Japanese. They were just kids from small town America that had no idea that they wanted to have a war. But anyhow, Lou's got to stick this in there. A war that was not of their choosing, said Governor Leon Guerrero. That's why we acted, helping so many see a day they never thought would come. We are grateful to our federal partners for supporting this measure and working with us to expedite payments. So, once again, it's as though this was all Lou and Josh. They're taking all the credit for it. And when I did the read-in, I said sometimes we have to put aside common sense and examine the what-ifs. Well, what if Lou and Josh hadn't done their dog and pony show? Would the war claims still be paid? Yeah, I expect that Trump will sign that bill within the next 10 days. He's got 10 days. And I expect it'll take another week after that for the checks to actually be put in the mail. So if you go back to when Lou and Josh actually started this, which was in January, if they had done nothing, the checks would still come out. So the checks came out at the most 2 months earlier than they would have had people just waited for the checks to come from Washington, D.C. But as I pointed out over and over again, it was a public relations gold mine for Lou and Josh. They were able to take credit over and over again. All the photo ops with the Manamco, all of the kind words from the Manamco, and given the fact that a lot of folks don't dig into things as deeply as our international radio listening audience does, people will think, yeah, I got the check. I got my money because Lou got it for me. If it hadn't been for her, I'd have never got my check. So St. Nicholas is the one that did the work. St. Nicholas is the one that made it happen. And who takes credit for it? Lou. And who's going to get credit for it? Lou. Now let me read what Lou said about Michael St. Nicholas and his efforts in this press release here that ran in the Daily News. Are you ready for this, Real Joe Cruz?
Breathless, sir.
Yeah. Can you give me about 15 seconds?
Oh, it's one of those where you don't say anything, sir. We can't have that much dead air, sir.
She said absolutely nothing.
Wow.
You know, a magnanimous leader would have said, I'm really grateful that Congressman St. Nicholas was able to get his bill through, and because he was able to do that, we accelerated payments. But no, she had to take credit for the whole thing. You know, she's wandering around wearing somebody else's hat. You know, she's got the best blocking team in football, and she says, you know, I'm really a good runner. Okay, let's break here for the home stretch.
Mezcla Chamorro Fusion Bistro in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon is stirring up some of your favorite drinks all night long. Come down on Wednesday and Friday nights from 5:30 to 10 p.m. Indulge in some of your favorite local cuisine and pair it with your favorite drink. From our ice-cold beers, our finest selection of wines and liquors, to our top-notch cocktail specials, your friends at Mezcla Bistro Tumon are ready to serve you. Why limit happy to only an hour? The Mezcla family reminds everyone to drink responsibly. See you on Wednesday and Friday night.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
If you've ever struggled for breath, you know what a scary experience it is. Whether you have asthma, emphysema, COPD, lung cancer, or another respiratory illness, the right medical treatment makes all the difference. GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic has the latest technology and respiratory equipment, staffed by world-class pulmonologists. Make an appointment today with GRMC's Pulmonology Clinic and start breathing easier. GRMC, where patients are partners.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
So here we are, Churchill Downs, Louisville, Kentucky, the home stretch. That means I've got about 8 more minutes to go before the end of another perfect day on Tall Tales here. Real Joe Cruz, I peeked at Facebook out of the corner of my eye here while I was listening to the Bugler, and there's a post from Frenchie. Frenchie said, the Real Joe Cruz does sound like Little Lou. Way to go, Real Joe Cruz.
Oh, thank you, Frenchie.
Now, there's a skill that'll take you a long way.
How do I say thank you in French?
Merci.
Merci.
Yeah, merci, monsieur.
Merci, monsieur.
Yeah, very good, Real Joe Cruz. Yeah, so there's a skill that'll take you a long way. Yeah, sounding like Governor Lou Leon Guerrero.
It could be on Broadway by next year.
You could, yeah. A night with the Real Joe Cruz as Governor Lou Leon Guerrero. Yeah. Okay, Real Joe Cruz, let's get out our Law and Order notebooks here. Yeah, this is Trump versus Payne-Elliott, and this is unusual. It's a legal matter, but it's an unusual legal matter. The Trump administration, and this is something I got from the Epoch Times, the Trump administration is taking the unusual step this week of appearing in a state court to defend the religious freedom of Catholic schools. So in a state trial court, Federal lawyers are expected to argue that federal constitutional rights are directly implicated by a state-level workplace discrimination lawsuit launched by a plaintiff who was fired for openly undermining church teaching in front of students. The First Amendment to the Constitution guarantees free exercise of religious beliefs. This has traditionally meant that churches have the right to make sure that employees who teach children in religious schools are supportive of church doctrine. That doesn't seem to be such a reach, does it, real Joe Cruz?
No, sir.
Yeah, I can't imagine, Father D putting an ad in the paper, wanted high school history teacher, must be a Lutheran. Doesn't seem like the way it would work, does it? So Assistant Attorney General Eric Grieband, who heads the U.S. Department of Justice Civil Rights Division, is expected to represent the administration as a friend of the court at a hearing in the case known as Payne Elliott versus Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Indianapolis, Inc., which is scheduled for March 10 in Marion County Superior Court, Indianapolis. The hearing will deal with a motion to dismiss initiated by the Archdiocese. Now, I've explained friend of the court briefs before, amicus briefs before. It's when the court allows someone who is not a party to the case but is interested in the case, that is, cares about how the case comes out, to submit papers, to submit a brief or a memorandum, etc., expressing a point of view that might very well help the court reach a decision. Here, back to the article. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution protects the right of religious institutions and people to decide what their beliefs are, to teach their faith, and to associate with others who share their faith, Grieband said, as reported by PJ Media. The First Amendment rightly protects the free exercise of religion. Seems like a no-brainer. The courts have no business intervening in this kind of dispute, the government previously stated. The United States has no reason on this record to doubt that plaintiff was an excellent teacher. Say, okay, for the purpose of argument, he's an excellent teacher. But it can cast no judgment on whether the Archdiocese's decision is right and proper as a matter of Catholic doctrine or religious faith. So the fact that he's a good teacher doesn't mean that that he couldn't be fired, that the Archdiocese couldn't fire him. Another quote, if the First Amendment's religious clause stands for anything, it is that secular courts cannot entangle themselves in questions of religious law. U.S. Attorney Josh Menkler stated in a September 2019 press release. Joshua Payne Elliott, a former teacher at Cathedral High School in Indianapolis, filed a lawsuit after he was fired in 2019 for openly defying the Roman Catholic Church's teachings on marriage and living with another man as a married couple. Catholics are kind of sticky that way. They think that marriage means one man and one woman. Payne Elliott was fired after he declined to back away from his open opposition to the Catholic belief that marriage is solely between one man and one woman. He's seeking back wages, employer-provided benefits, and compensation for emotional distress and reputational damage. Real Joe Cruz, I'm running a risk reading this here on Tall Tales.
You are, sir.
You know why?
Go ahead, sir.
If Rory's listening, he's going to rush over to Indianapolis and try to settle the case.
Oh, boy.
give this guy a bunch of money and settle the case, right? Okay, so Payne Elliott's attorney, Kathleen Delaney, previously said the case is about the church's interference and a contract, not Catholic beliefs. So this is a pretty interesting legal point, and we'll bring it back on Monday, put it on the card on Monday. But I hear the real Joe Cruz's favorite song playing in the background, so it's going to be time for us to say adios, Estacopa. Been real nice being with you guys this afternoon. We'll see you tomorrow.